Hi everyone, I'm Zenzo with Aquariumcoop, and as usual, Irene is joining me today, and we're going to talk about a different topic today. Today we're going to talk about our dream fish, or our bucket list fish, and our dream aquarium setup, as this is something that people often fantasize about when it comes to aquariums. If you could have any fish that's available to you, what would it be? And if you could have any kind of aquarium setup, what would that look like? So let's start off with Irene and hear what her bucket list or dream fish is.
So I'm usually known as the nanofish girl because most of the fish I keep are 1 to 3 inches, let's say. So one of the fish I've always wanted to keep would be a monster fish. Clown loaches. They are the ultimate wet pet, live about 10 to 20 years, and then they get to the size of basically a football. So not only do you have the large size, but you have the kind of golden yellow color with a very distinct wide vertical banding on it, as well as red orange finnage in it. And I think they have barbels as well. They have a more of a pointier face, and again, that thicker body as well. And when you get a good sized group of them, they basically act like underwater puppies. They are constantly swimming around, frolicking, a very active fish. They will do a lot of unique behaviors. So things I've heard include clicking. So if you have them and you hear this weird clicking sound, it is not your tank that's starting to crack or anything. They are actually communicating with each other. When I see them at the fish store, a lot of time they are, even though they've got the whole space of the tank, they will just like dog pile on each other and just try to cram themselves into the tightest spaces or corners or into the same PVC pipe, which is really, really funny. Obviously with a fish this size, they're not really picky eaters. They're going to basically eat anything you throw at them, whether it's massive carnivore pellets, worms, you can throw them blanched zucchini, and they do love a good meal of snails. So if you have a pest snail problem, gone, no more. Unfortunately, the reason why I don't see myself necessarily realistically keeping this fish anytime soon is because of their massive size and because they need to be in a pretty large group. We're talking about like a 6-foot long tank or larger, and I just don't have the space for that. They are crepuscular animals, meaning I'm gonna see them mostly active at dawn and at dusk, which is fine with my work schedule. I'll see them before work and after, as well as sometimes I've heard they can be shy, especially if they're wild caught specimens. So one idea I've had is maybe getting some kind of ditherfish. It'd have to be a species that can stand those warmer temperatures to match the clown loach, but the ditherfish, the point of them is they're usually more outgoing, they're bolder, they swim out in the open, and then it makes it safer, or the clown loaches feel like it's safe for them to go out and about as well, and they won't be hiding all the time in the back where I can never see them. Corey has personally owned clown loaches, which is one of the reasons why I fell in love with them in the first place. So definitely check out the videos on our channel to see them really in action and what they're like and why I love them so much. What about you, Zenzo? What is your #1 bucket list fish that you have to keep?
Well, first off, I think I learned a new word today. What was it again? Crepuscular?
Crepuscular?
Yeah, so I didn't know that that meant dawn or dusk. But anyway, I think like you, Irene, my bucket list fish or dream fish is an African cichlid. Now, people know that I like African cichlids. My fish room here has got a bunch of them in there. I've been keeping them for a long time. But there's an African cichlid that I've never kept before that I've wanted to keep, and that's the Frontosa. Now, Frontosas are African cichlids. They do come from Lake Tanganyika, which is the Rift Lake in East Africa, and they get very large. So in captivity, you're gonna see them get 10 to 12 inches, maybe even up to 14 inches if you've got some really large males that have been living for a long time. So they do require a lot of space. So for me to keep them, I'm gonna need a much larger tank than I have in my fish room. I would need like a 240-gallon aquarium, which is gonna be 8 feet long. So I would need to keep them in a very large tank. And for me, I would want to keep them as a species only fish, meaning that I don't want to have any other fish in there with them, just a colony of Frontosa. I'd probably start off with maybe around like 5 or 6 or 7, just to kind of have a group, medium-sized group, so that I can ensure I have some males and females. I'll probably give them at a juvenile size, and then I'll have to wait and wait and wait a long time for them to grow, as they are known to be very slow growing fish. So with that, you do have the satisfaction of eventually seeing them grow to larger sizes, and then you'll see them spawn, and then you'll have fry, and you'll have more Frontosa. So you'll see your colony grow over the years. So that is an appeal They're a very beautiful fish. They're a large, obviously they're a cichlid, so they have that cichlid shape. The males will get like this big nuchal hump once they become mature. Just a very beautiful, striking fish with really good coloration. I love the behavior. They're not very boisterous. They don't swim around quickly or anything like that. But if you have a large aquarium with lots of space for them to swim around and kind of have their own area, you're going to see them kind of occupy different parts of the tank. Now, they are predatory fish, so you don't want to keep them with smaller fish that will get eaten, because that would very much happen. So again, for me, species only tank with a colony of Frontosa. So now that you've heard what our dream or bucket list fish are, let's talk about our dream aquarium setup. So let's hear from Irene on what her dream tank is.
Well, normally I keep, again, nano size community tanks, very planted. And while the clown loaches, they're definitely a bucket list fish, I'm not sure it's gonna happen in my lifetime. So I wanna go a little more realistic with my dream aquarium setup. So I'm thinking a 55 to 75 gallon community tank, planted, but all the community fish are gonna be bigger, slightly bigger species that I've never kept before. So first up on my list would be Boesemani Rainbowfish. I've actually never kept like the bigger regular size rainbowfish, only the blue-eyed rainbows, like the fork-tailed rainbowfish. So one of the most famous ones would be the Boesemani Rainbowfish. And the reason why is it's like you have your classic almond-shaped rainbowfish profile, but then the front half of it is iridescent blue, and then the back half of it is this really intense orange. And I'm from Colorado, we've got the Denver Broncos, blue and orange is their team colors, and I would love to have a fish that has both of those in my aquarium. As with all rainbow fish, very active, pretty hardy. Actually, most of the fish on my list are pretty hardy, and I would just love a big school of them swimming back and forth in this big 4-foot tank. I really love gouramis. I've kept dwarf gouramis, honey gouramis, sparkling gouramis. Wouldn't it be awesome to get a bigger upgrade? So pearl gouramis, great fish. They've got that classic kind of blimp-like profile, the 2 long ventral fins. This particular gourami is actually slightly more peaceful than some of the other species, so you can keep them in a group, which I love. I think they get to about 5 inches max with kind of a light brown body. With the reason why they're called pearl gouramis is they have the white pearl kind of dots over them, and then during breeding season, the males can get a red-orange kind of belly abdomen area, which seems super cool. I like their personality. I like the way they look. I've seen them on other people's channels. Super jealous. That kind of covers the middle to top half of the aquarium, so I definitely want something for the bottom half of the aquarium. And I'm thinking, since everybody else in the aquarium is pretty lively and active, why not get some loaches? Again, I've only kept the smaller, really tiny loaches. What about Angelicus or polka dot loaches? They get to about 4 inches and they have yellow spots and black striping, very high contrast, very visually pleasing. And then according to Corey, they don't have a mean bone in their body, which is great because everybody else is pretty friendly in the aquarium, and sometimes loaches, they can be pretty boisterous and feisty, so I want everybody to get along, and I think they would be perfect. And with most loaches, they do like to eat snails. As for plants, this is my chance to keep plants that are much bigger than anything I've kept before. So I'm definitely thinking in kind of the background area, hopefully a forest of Vallisneria, if I can keep them there. According to Corey, again, it is the one-hit wonder because you plant a few pots in there and they pretty much spread like crazy. Then I'm thinking a red flame sword on one side because sword plants can get huge. They're sometimes called tank busters because they can really take over your aquarium if you don't have one big enough for them. And on the other end, maybe a red tiger lotus. I heard they need medium to high lighting though, so I definitely have to work out that situation to make sure it got enough lighting. The possibilities are absolutely endless, at least for me, because this would be my first time owning a 4-foot tank. But I want to hear what you have to say, Zenzo, and what is your dream aquarium setup, especially since you have a fish room and you've kept many types of tanks.
Yeah, so I have kept a lot of different types of tanks, but before I talk about that, I definitely think that you should pursue this because everyone needs to have a 4-foot tank sometime in their life, and it's really quite manageable. It doesn't need to be, you don't need a huge amount of space, so if you can fit a 29 somewhere, you can kind of figure out how to fit a 55 or a 75 gallon tank. But anyway, Great ideas, Irene. Actually, mine is kind of similar, although not gourami. In fact, I was actually thinking about gouramis while you were talking about them. And the last time that I kept a gourami was in 2002. So it's been a few years.
Oh my goodness, why?
Well, I did them for a while, moved on to other fish. So my dream tank is going to be a giant planted aquarium. And I mean giant, I'm talking like 300 to 400 gallons, maybe 10 feet wide or wider, 10 to 12 feet wide. I want like a really large planted aquarium. I think it's very beautiful to see that nature in your home and to see all those plants growing and all the fish swimming around and the invertebrates. But also, I want something that's easy. So when I think about a dream tank, I think about something that allows me to enjoy it, spend a little time, trimming plants and doing water changes, but mostly just looking at the tank, letting things go the way they're going and not having to do massive water changes every other week or whatever it might be. I just want it to be easy. And I think the more tanks that I have and the more experience I have with aquariums, the more I realize that I really want to kind of go back to things that are easier, which is why I'm actually trying to have plants in every aquarium, even if they have salt in them. So with that giant aquarium, I would like to have a school of Congo Tetras. Now, Congo Tetras are beautiful fish. Males and females are pretty similar, but the males are going to have a little bit more coloration, a little bit longer finnage. They get to be like 3.5, maybe 4 inches. I've had some pretty large Congo Tetras before, and they will have that kind of schooling behavior, so they'll swim back and forth and around. Along with that, I'd probably want to have a giant school of some smaller Tetra, either like a cardinal or a rummy-nosed Tetra. Either one I think would be fine. And I mean like 100 of them. So like 100, cardinal Tetras swimming around amongst a school of, let's say, 20 or so Congo Tetras. Of course, on the bottom, I'll want to have maybe a group of like Sturbi corridora, maybe 15 or 20 of those. And then in other parts of the aquarium, of course, I'd want to have like some algae eaters and some invertebrates and things like that, just kind of balance out my cleanup crew. And maybe this is inspired by, reading the Oliver Knott book about his time with Takashi Amano, or seeing the amazing displays that Oliver has done and that Takashi Amano did before, and kind of inspired by that. Now, not aquascaped tank. I don't want like something that's going to require me to be trimming every week, but more of like a natural planted aquarium that just has a nice aesthetic to it with those fish swimming around.
Let us know down in the comments what your dream fish or dream aquarium setup is. Our founder, Corey, spent years looking for his bucket list animal, so you can learn about his story over here.